Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Mortgage Question of the Week. Actually, not Mortgage Question of the Week. We are going to have a special edition and introduce Grant Dearden, who is behind the scene operations assistant. Grant is actually going to do something a little different than mortgages today. Grant is a level 2 certified sommelier, and I can actually say that word because it's a French word, sommelier. And I'm going to introduce Ryan, who's going to also help me with the wine tasting today. But
help by drinking, not help by giving any type of information. Just I'm here for moral support.
But you can actually give us what you're experiencing while you're drinking.
Oh, I will.
Oh. So I'm going to turn it over to Grant. Grant, welcome. Let's start the wine tasting.
Yeah, thank you guys both so much for having me on today. Going to get right into it here. We have a Crianza Tempranillo from Ribera del Duero, which is in central Spain. While we go ahead and get a little in the glass here. Let's talk about what this means. Crianza is a Spanish classification system, which much like Premier Cru or Grand Cru in France, which is a quality indicator, the Spaniards actually do their classifications by how long the wine sat in a fermentation vessel. So Crianza means it's been a whole year in oak, basically. And so now we got a little wine in the glass here. We're going to start visually. I'm going to ask you guys both to put the glasses on a white cloth and look at it from over top. And tell me, can you make out the stem through the wine?
Barely.
Yeah, barely.
So you can kind of see it, but it isn't necessarily opaque. So this is a big indicator of how aromatically and how intense the flavor is going to be. So how bold the wine is going to be. You can most often tell just by looking through there. It's kind of a good hint at what you're about to taste. For example, a Napa Valley Cabernet would be, you wouldn't be able to see through it at all, where a Beaujolais Nouveau in November would be almost translucent. So the next thing we're going to do visually here is we're going to pick the glass up, hold it as horizontally as you can without spilling, obviously. And what you're going to see is there's kind of a core color in the middle, and then towards the outer rim of the wine, it fades into that sort of pinkish, almost even salmonish color. And then there's a little watery meniscus there at the end. Rim variation is a big indicator of youth in a wine. So a young wine would be very watery towards the outside, where an older wine would be kind of consistent all the way through to the rim. And then once you exceed that 20-year mark, wine gets about as old as I am, there becomes like an orange hue out there on the outside. So wines that are capable of aging for 20 years.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
And is that because the wine is just fermentated and it's become more the same consistency versus?
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Think about it. When you buy a bottle of wine, it isn't filled all the way up to the cork. There's some air in there, right? So that's kind of just the 20 years of reacting with that air and that cork that it's been sealed in with. The last thing we're going to do visually here, let the wine dance in the glass a bit. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the camera, but there are little droplets running down there. And so those we're going to call legs. And those are an indicator of alcohol content. So the longer the legs stay up on the slope of the glass here, that's going to mean a higher alcohol content. And the quicker they come back, lower alcohol. It could also mean residual sugar, but that's for another episode. So as you can see, they're there. They're not coming down immediately. So we can probably go ahead and guess that this is a pretty high alcohol content wine. Again, this is 14.5%. Table wines can range anywhere from 9 to 16.5%. So it's kind of in that happy medium.
So we got visual, and then.
So those are our eyes, and now we'll go ahead and move on to the nose here, and we'll talk about aromas. Kind of what are you smelling for in a wine? The first are primary aromas. These are usually associated with grape varietal and soil type. So these are your fruits and your herbs. So the blackberry, strawberry, banana, pineapple, green pepper, mint, any of those. Yeah, I see Alex eyebrows raised at pineapple. So if you've had Gewürztraminer from Alsace, France, smells like straight pineapple. It's amazing.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so those are your primaries. Your secondaries come from winemaking techniques. So that could be the fermentation vessel. So it could be oak imparting flavors, or it could also be like a method. So for example, in Napa Valley, they use malolactic fermentation to create their kind of buttery Chardonnays. And that's essentially leaving dead yeast cells at the bottom of the barrel or at the bottom of the stainless steel that imparts that flaky, buttery, biscuity type flavors. Lastly, on the nose are your tertiary flavors, and these are associated with age. So let's say you had a wine, you bought two of the same bottles. One you drank the day you bought it, and the second you waited a decade. So that first bottle you have, it might be red fruits, it might be like strawberry, raspberry, super bright and lively. And then you wait a decade and you come back and those red fruits have turned into like a preserved fruit, like a fig or a jam or something like that. So tertiaries, go ahead.
Can you have a bottle that was good the first 5 years, and then you wait 20 years and actually the wine tastes awful?
Yeah, a lot of wines are not meant to age. Okay. That's just some grape varietals just can't do it. And usually bolder wines are more likely to age well. So like, for example, Bordeaux blends and Napa Valley Cabernet are like, they age fantastically. You can age them between like 20, sometimes even 50 years.
And is that just like a lot of trial and error of, hey, let's age this for 10 years and see what happens. Let's age this for 20. And then you have different winemakers that are kind of known for their certain.
Yeah. It's also that trial and error took place like 1,000 years ago. Right. So, I mean, yeah, most of the famous vineyards in France and Italy were planted by Romans, 2,000, 2,500 years ago. So a lot of the trial and error for age has kind of preceded us in modern winemaking.
Right.
So when is the best part, which is a tasting? Is that right after the nose?
Yep, that is right after the nose. So now we got that out of the way, we can move on to the fun part here. And so those kind of flavors, aromatic profile, like primary, secondary, tertiary, those carry over to the tasting. But it's necessary to talk about a couple characteristics of wine before you taste, just to kind of know what you're looking for. So the first one I want to talk about is acidity. I'm going to taste the here first. So I want you to imagine that you just cut a lemon in half, and you're taking the two halves, and you're just squeezing them on your tongue and you're just licking it, lapping up this lemon juice, right? So just imagining that, you actually start to salivate in the back of your jaw. It'll start to swell up a little, just even thinking about it. So that feeling in the back of your jaw, when you think about citrus, that is how you taste acidity in a wine.
Can I taste?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Tastes like red wine.
Tastes like grapes.
Right?
It's
actually pretty cool. I taste something down the throat too when it goes down.
So the throat, that's going to be an indicator of alcohol content again. So you have acidity, alcohol content, which is again that burning in your throat, that kind of sensation that's associated with the finish. And then next you have tannin, which is kind of a grippy feeling in your mouth that like dries your mouth out, that leathery feeling on your tongue almost. That's tannin. And then lastly, you have sweetness / dryness. And a lot of people confuse dryness and tannin because, I just described tannin and it sounds exactly like how you would describe dryness. But in wine, dryness actually just means the absence of sweetness. So if a wine isn't sweet, it's dry. And an overwhelming majority of red wines are kind of just dry by nature. This one, obviously bone dry. I taste no sweetness in this at all.
So when you're approaching this glass, you poured for the first time, you're doing all those steps and kind of developing that flavor profile per se. So what your taste buds are already prepped for this, and this.
Yeah. So, I mean, the visual is like a big thing right off the jump. I mean, kind of determining how intense the wine is going to be just by looking through the stem, that's going to give you like a really big hint at what the wine's ultimately going to taste like. And then, the nose will give you a certain set of aromas. And then when you finally go in with the palate, it's kind of just like that last puzzle piece to create the picture.
That's pretty cool. So you're able to look at the wine, smell it, and you even know what kind of wine you're about to taste.
Yeah, not always, but that's the goal. Most of the time, you have a pretty good idea of at least what it's going to taste like, if not what the grape varietal might be and where it might be from, that kind of stuff.
Thank you, Grant, for joining this segment. We'll probably have you for a future segment. Maybe we'll do white wine next time. But thanks everybody for joining. DM us your questions for the type of wine you want to bring to your next housewarming party for your friend that just bought a house. And talk to you guys next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.